The cold seeped through the thin cardboard I'd spread over the grimy alleyway. It was barely dawn, the sky a bruised purple hinting at the day to come, but my stomach was already twisting with hunger. I pulled the threadbare scarf tighter around my face, the rough wool scratching against my chapped lips. It had been almost 3 months since I'd walked out, slammed the door on the suffocating opulence of my life, on the carefully curated smiles and the suffocating expectations. 3 months of scraping by, of the relentless, gnawing ache of survival. A scuffling sound made me jump. A rat, no doubt, scurrying along the brick wall. I shivered, not just from the cold, but from the loneliness that had become my constant companion. I missed the warmth of my old room, the soft carpet beneath my feet, the endless supply of food. But the thought of going back, of being a porcelain doll in a gilded cage, made my stomach clench. Then I saw him. He wasn't like the other men who shuffled through the alley, their faces etched with weariness or despair. He was leaning against a lamppost, the early light catching the sharp angles of his face. Even in the shadows, his tailored coat looked expensive, the wool a deep, rich navy that screamed wealth. He was staring directly at me, a slight frown creasing his brow. "You okay?" His voice was deep, a rumble that cut through the morning quiet. I instinctively shrank back, pulling my scarf higher. "I'm fine," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. He took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. "You don't look fine. You look like you haven't slept in days." I hated that he was right. The past few weeks had been brutal. I was running on fumes, my body aching with fatigue. I looked away, the shame of my current state burning in my chest. "It's none of your business." He didn't move. "Maybe not. But I can see you're cold and hungry. Let me at least get you some coffee." I hesitated. I'd learned the hard way not to trust strangers. Yet something in his eyes, something that seemed genuine, chipped away at my defenses. "I don't have any money," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He smiled, and it was like the sun had broken through the clouds. "I do. That was how I met Alexander. He bought me coffee, a steaming cup that burned my hands but warmed me from the inside out. He didn't ask too many questions, just listened as I talked about the street, about the constant struggle, about the fear of not knowing where I'd find my next meal. He told me he was a tech entrepreneur, that he was in town for a few days. He was different, charming, kind, and there was a strength about him that made me feel safe, a feeling I hadn't felt in months. Over the next few weeks, Alexander and I became inseparable. He introduced me to his friends, a whirlwind of artists, musicians, and other fascinating individuals, a world away from my past. I started to work with a local soup kitchen, helping out with meals, something that grounded me, made me feel like I was part of something bigger, something real. I was slowly starting to heal. The constant fear replaced by a cautious optimism. He even found me a small room to rent, a place with 4 walls and a door that locked, a luxury I never thought I'd experience again. One evening, we were walking by the river, the city lights shimmering on the water. Alexander had just finished telling me about a new project he was working on, his eyes alight with passion. He turned to me, a serious expression on his face. "I've been thinking you shouldn't be working at a soup kitchen. You should be working for me. You're intelligent and resourceful. You're wasted doing what you are doing." A thrill ran through me. "Seriously," he nodded, his eyes fixed on mine. "I've been watching you, Anya. You've got something special, and I need someone I can trust." His words made me blush. "What kind of work?" "I own multiple businesses. I will find something you like." I knew I had never trusted someone this much. I nodded, unable to meet his gaze, my heart pounding against my ribs. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'll do it." That was when I saw him, standing a few meters away, watching us. It was Sterling, my father's most trusted advisor, the man I had seen lurking in the shadows many times growing up, a man who always seemed to know everything that was going on in our household. He was smiling a tight, unsettling smile that made my blood run cold. I knew then that nothing was as it seemed. This life, this hope, all of it was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. And Alexander, the man I had started to care for, was somehow, inextricably, part of it. I felt my face drain as I realized who bought him. The air in the small art gallery crackled with a nervous energy. It was Alexander's friend, Leo's, first solo exhibition, and the place was packed with people, artists, critics, wealthy collectors, all buzzing around the vibrant, sometimes unsettling canvases. And I moved through the crowd, a glass of champagne in my hand, trying to appear as if I belonged, as if this wasn't just a bizarre detour from my life in the alley. Alexander, looking impossibly handsome in a dark suit, was deep in conversation with a group of older men, their faces serious and discerning. He caught my eye across the room and offered me a small, reassuring smile, and I almost forgot the cold knot of dread that had settled in my stomach since I had seen Mr. Sterling by the river. Impressive, isn't it? A voice startled me, and I turned to see a woman with fiery red hair and piercing blue eyes standing beside me. Her name was Clara, another one of Alexander's friends, a sculptor who always seemed to look right through me. She was beautiful, talented, and utterly intimidating. I managed a polite smile. Yes, it is. Leo is incredibly talented. Clara raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Talented, yes, but volatile. He lives his art, or rather, his art consumes him. She took a slow sip of her champagne, her gaze fixed on me. He reminds me a little bit of you, Enya. A little bit displaced? Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Did she know? Could she sense the fragility of the facade I'd so carefully constructed? I forced a laugh, trying to appear unaffected. Displaced? I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Clara's lips curled into a knowing smile. Are you now? Before I could respond, a voice boomed through the crowd. Anya, darling, you look ravishing. It was Leo, his dark hair tousled, his cheeks flushed with excitement. As he rushed over, hugging me a little too enthusiastically, he smelled of paint and turpentine and a faint whiff of something else, something vaguely intoxicating. What do you think? My magnum opus? No. He gestured dramatically towards a large canvas depicting a chaotic cityscape, swathed in vibrant, swirling colors. It's powerful, I said, choosing my words carefully. It was powerful, yes, but also disturbing, like a window into a troubled mind. He beamed at me, oblivious. Powerful, yes. That's exactly the word. You always understand me, Anya. You always see the real art. He squeezed my arm, his fingers stained with paint. Alexander joined us then, his hand settling on the small of my back. Leo, you're neglecting your other guests, and Anya and I need a moment. His tone was light, but there was a hint of steel in it, a silent command that made Leo step back. Of course, Alex, Leo said, his exuberance momentarily dimmed. He turned to me, his eyes lingering for a beat longer than they should have. It was lovely talking to you, Enya. Maybe we can have a longer conversation later, just you and me. With a final unnerving smile, he was gone. What was that about? Alexander asked, his voice low. Nothing, I said quickly, trying to dismiss the strange intensity of Leo's attention. He's just excited about his exhibition. Alexander led me away from the crowd, towards a quieter corner of the gallery. He took my hands in his thumbs stroking my knuckles. You seem tense. Is everything okay? My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted to tell him to confess the fear that had taken root, but the words wouldn't come. How could I explain the chilling feeling of betrayal? The dawning realization that I was just a pawn in some elaborate game? I forced myself to meet his gaze, trying to read something in his eyes, something that would tell me if he was truly who he seemed to be. But his expression was as warm and genuine as always, a perfect mask. I'm fine, I lied, my voice trembling slightly. It's just a lot of people. He smiled, a soft, tender smile that made my stomach flip. Well, let's get out of here. I was thinking we could go for a walk. The city is beautiful at night, and as he took my hand, leading me towards the exit, I felt a terrible, crushing weight settle upon my shoulders. I knew then that this wasn't going to be easy, that I was going to have to play this game until I could figure out the truth, until I could understand who had bought Alexander, and for what price. As we stepped onto the street, the cool night air chilling my skin. I glanced back. In the doorway of the gallery, standing just inside, I saw Clara. She was looking straight at me, her expression unreadable. For a brief, unsettling moment, I thought I saw something akin to pity in her eyes. The game, it seemed, was just beginning. The city was a kaleidoscope of shimmering lights and echoing sounds as we walked. Alexander's hand warm in mine, he led me away from the bustling main streets, down narrow cobblestone lanes, the kind that whispered secrets in the quiet of the night. He pointed out architectural details I had never noticed, spoke of the city's history with a quiet passion, and for a moment I almost forgot the gnawing anxiety that had become my constant companion. I almost allowed myself to believe in the effortless charm he projected, the unwavering gaze that always seemed to see right into my soul. But the feeling was fleeting, like a dream on the verge of dissolving. "You know, when I first saw you in that alley," he said, his voice soft, "I knew there was something special about you, something raw, like a diamond that just needed to be unearthed." I looked away, the words catching in my throat. Was this part of the act? The carefully crafted narrative designed to keep me close, to keep me compliant? "I was just trying to survive," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He stopped walking, turning to face me. "But you're not just surviving anymore, Anya. You're thriving. You're becoming you." He gently tilted my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes, and for a second I saw something that could have been love there, a flicker of emotion that felt so real, so tangible. It almost shattered the wall I had so carefully built around my heart. "And what about you, Alexander?" I asked the question out before I could stop it. "What were you doing in that alley at dawn?" His expression shifted, the tender warmth replaced by a guarded look. "I often take walks early in the morning," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "It's when I do my best thinking." I knew he was lying. The lie wasn't in the words, but in the way he said them, in the subtle shift in his posture, the way he avoided my gaze. The realization was like a cold splash of water, reminding me that this entire relationship was built on deception, a house of cards waiting to be blown away. We continued walking in silence, the unspoken tension hanging heavy between us. We ended up at a small park overlooking the city, the lights twinkling like distant stars. We sat on a bench, the cold seeping through my thin coat, but I barely felt it. My mind was a whirlwind of questions, each one more terrifying than the last. "Anya," Alexander said, breaking the silence, his voice low, I need to be honest with you." My breath hitched in my throat, my heart pounding against my ribs. Here it was, the truth. Was he finally going to admit that he was bought, that our entire relationship was a fabrication? I prepared myself for the confession, the crushing revelation that would unravel everything I thought I knew about him. I've been working on a new project," he continued, his voice hesitant, almost nervous. It's a kind of AI, a program that can learn and adapt, that can predict trends and make decisions. It's incredibly complex, but I think it has the potential to change the world." My confusion must have been written all over my face because he laughed, a short, nervous laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know, it's a lot to take in, but the point is, I need your help. I need your insight, your perspective." I stared at him, dumbfounded. AI. This was what he had been leading up to. "My help?" I asked, my voice flat. "I don't know anything about AI." He took my hands in his again, his touch sending a strange mix of warmth and unease through me. "You don't need to. You have a way of seeing things, of understanding people, that most people don't. You have a natural intuition, Anya, and I need that. I need you on my team." I wanted to laugh, a hysterical, bitter laugh that would shatter the fabricated calm he was trying so hard to maintain. He was still playing the game, still trying to manipulate me, even after he said he was going to be honest. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth, but something stopped me. A small, desperate part of me still clung to the hope that there was something real in what we had, that the tenderness in his eyes was not just a well-rehearsed performance. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Tell me more about this project." As he began to explain the complexities of his artificial intelligence, I listened with half an ear, my mind racing. I had a feeling this AI was a key to something bigger, that it was somehow linked to my family, to the reasons they were willing to go to such lengths to bring me back. I knew that I couldn't trust Alexander, but I also knew that he was the only way I was going to find out the truth. So I would play along just a little bit longer until I had a better understanding of the game they were playing, of the web they had so carefully woven around me, and I knew with chilling certainty that the real game was far from over. The next few weeks were a carefully orchestrated dance of deception. I spent my days working with Alexander, poring over documents filled with complex algorithms and convoluted data sets, pretending to be fascinated by the intricacies of his AI project. He, in turn, showered me with praise and attention, his gaze never wavering, his touch always gentle and reassuring. He had even hired a stylist to help me with my wardrobe, trading my worn-out clothes for elegant dresses and tailored trousers, further cementing my transformation from street urchin to sophisticated tech consultant. But beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic life, the cold knot of dread in my stomach remained, a constant reminder that nothing was as it seemed. I was getting better at playing the game, at mirroring Alexander's affections, at hiding the suspicion that constantly gnawed at me. I learned to decipher his subtle cues, the slight twitch of his jaw when he was uncomfortable, the way his eyes would glaze over when he was talking about his past. He had given me a small apartment, a safe haven in the middle of the city, which was a significant upgrade from the cramped room I had been renting. Yet, even surrounded by comfort and luxury, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in a gilded cage, constantly monitored, my every move scrutinized. One evening, we were having dinner at a trendy restaurant, the low hum of conversation and the clinking of silverware providing a strange backdrop to the unease that had settled between us. Alexander was talking about his plans for the AI, his voice full of passion and conviction. I listened politely, nodding at the appropriate moments, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying a conversation I had overheard earlier that day, a hushed exchange between two men I hadn't recognized, mentioning my name and the word extraction. "Enya, are you even listening to me?" Alexander's voice broke through my thoughts, his brow furrowed in concern. I forced a smile, trying to appear attentive. "Of course I am. It's fascinating." He reached across the table, taking my hand in his touch sending a familiar shiver down my spine. "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine." I lied, the words as smooth and practiced as if I had recited them 1,000 times before. "I'm just tired. The project has been a lot to take in." He studied my face, his gaze intense, and for a moment I thought he could see right through me, could sense the fear that was bubbling beneath the surface. But then he smiled, a soft, tender smile that almost made me believe in him again. "I understand. Why don't we take a break this weekend? We could go to the coast, just you and me." The idea of escaping, of being away from the city and the constant surveillance was tempting, but I knew it was a trap. It was just another way to keep me close, to prevent me from digging deeper, from uncovering the truth. "That sounds nice," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "But I have a lot of work to catch up on. Maybe another time." He didn't push it, but I could see disappointment in his eyes, the subtle flicker of annoyance that he tried so hard to conceal. The air between us grew thick with unspoken tension, the easy camaraderie of our earlier days replaced by a cautious formality. As we were leaving the restaurant, I saw her again, Clara standing by the bar, her fiery red hair a beacon in the dim light. She was watching us, her blue eyes piercing and unreadable. For a brief moment, I thought she was going to approach us, but then she turned away, disappearing into the crowd. I felt a strange pull towards her, a sense that she knew more than she let on, that she could be a potential ally or, perhaps, another enemy in this intricate web of deceit. Later that night, as I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The AI, the constant surveillance, the carefully crafted persona of Alexander. It all pointed to one conclusion. They weren't just trying to bring me back, they were trying to control me, and the AI, That was the key, the tool that would allow them to manipulate me, to erase my memories, to turn me into the obedient puppet they wanted me to be. And Alexander, he was just the charming face of this sinister plot, the bait used to lure me into their trap. I knew then that I couldn't stay here, that I had to escape. But this time, I would be prepared. I would play the game a little longer, gather all the information I could, and then, when they least expected it, I would strike. I closed my eyes, the chilling reality settling over me, the weight of my family's betrayal a heavy cloak on my shoulders. The game, it seemed, was not just beginning, it was about to get deadly. Chapter 5. The following days were a blur of calculated moves and veiled conversations. I spent hours in Alexander's office poring over the AI's code, pretending to be engaged, while secretly trying to understand how it worked, how it could be used for manipulation. I noticed patterns, subtle nuances in the algorithms that pointed to a deeper purpose than Alexander had let on. It wasn't just about predicting trends. It was about controlling behavior, about shaping perceptions, about rewriting reality. The more I learned, the more terrified I became. I started making discreet inquiries, asking seemingly innocuous questions about the AI's capabilities, testing the waters, trying to gauge how much Alexander was willing to reveal. He was evasive, always changing, subject, his carefully constructed facade slipping ever so slightly. I knew I had to tread carefully. One wrong move, and I would be exposed. I began to document my findings, keeping a detailed journal in a hidden compartment behind my bookshelf, a record of their lies, their manipulation, a testament to the betrayal that had become my reality. One afternoon, while Alexander was in a meeting, I received a message on my phone, a simple text from an unknown number. Meet me at the cafe on Elm Street, noon tomorrow. I know what's happening. I stared at the message, my heart pounding against my ribs. It could be a trap, another test, but I also knew I had to take the risk. The next day, I made my excuses, telling Alexander I had a headache and needed some fresh air. He looked at me skeptically, his gaze probing, but eventually he relented. I made my way to the cafe, my senses on high alert, my every nerve screaming with anxiety. I scanned the room, my eyes searching for a familiar face, a sign of recognition, and then I saw her. Clara was sitting at a corner table, her fiery red hair a stark contrast to the muted colors of the cafe. She gestured for me to sit, her expression serious. "You got my message," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "Someone who knows you're in danger," she replied, her blue eyes locking onto mine. "I've been watching you, Anya. I know about your family, about what they're planning, and I know about Alexander." My breath caught in my throat. "How?" She took a sip of her coffee, her gaze unwavering. "It doesn't matter right now. What matters is that you get out of here. They're not going to let you leave. Not willingly. They're going to use that AI to control you, to erase your memories, to turn you into something you're not." The words confirmed my deepest fears, the chilling reality crashing down on me like a tidal wave. "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I've been trying to figure out how to escape." Clara nodded, her expression hardening. "I can help you. I've been working on my own escape plan for months. I know their system, their patterns, their vulnerabilities." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a near murmur. "But we have to be careful, Anya. They are always watching, always listening." I stared at her, a sliver of hope flickering within me. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "Why are you helping me?" She hesitated for a moment, her gaze shifting. "Let's just say I have my own reasons for wanting to see them fall." She then reached into her bag and produced a small, unassuming key. "This is a key to a safe house, a place where you can lay low while we figure out our next move." I took the key, my fingers trembling. "Can I trust you?" I asked, my voice filled with uncertainty. Clara's lips curled into a knowing smile, a flicker of something akin to sadness in her eyes. "That's a question you're going to have to answer for yourself. But if you want to survive, you have to trust someone. And right now, I'm the only option you have." As I sat there, staring at the small key in my palm, I knew that Clara was right. I had no one else to turn to. Alexander, the man I had once thought I could trust, was a puppet in my family. The people who were supposed to love me were the architects of my destruction. The game was about to change, and I knew, deep in my bones, that the next move would be the most dangerous one yet. The escape had begun. Chapter 6, The Safe House, was nothing like I expected. I pictured a secret bunker hidden away in some remote location, but it was a small, unassuming apartment above a bustling bakery, the smell of fresh bread and cinnamon filling the air. Clara met me there, her movements quick and efficient, like a seasoned operative. She showed me the layout, a small living area, a compact kitchen, and a single bedroom, all meticulously clean and sparsely furnished. This place is off-grid, she explained, her voice crisp. No traceable connections, no cameras, nothing that could compromise our security. She gestured to a small, worn-out backpack lying on the bed. I've packed some essentials, clothes, a burner phone, a few things you might need. I felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with a healthy dose of apprehension. Thank you, Clara, for everything. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't thank me yet. We still have a long way to go. We need a plan. She pulled a chair up to the small table and spread out a map of the city. Alexander and your family, they are not going to give up easily. They have resources, connections. They will be looking for you everywhere. We spent hours that evening poring over the map, marking potential escape routes, identifying blind spots, and outlining strategies to avoid detection. Clara was a whirlwind of efficiency, her mind sharp and focused, her every movement precise and purposeful. Explained how the AI worked, the specific algorithms they used to track and predict my behavior, and showed me how to disrupt their surveillance system. It was clear she knew a lot more about Alexander's operations than she was letting on, and that intrigued and unsettled me in equal measure. We need to find proof, she said, her fingers tracing the outline of a specific building on the map. Proof that this whole thing was orchestrated, that Alexander was bought and paid for by your family. We need something that can expose them. I thought about the journal I had hidden in my apartment, the detailed account of their lies and manipulations. It was the best evidence I had, but getting it back would be incredibly risky. I have a journal, I told her, my voice low. It's hidden in my apartment, but getting it back will be difficult. Clara nodded, her eyes narrowing in concentration. That's something we can work with. We need to distract them, create an opportunity, something that will throw them off balance. She paused, her gaze shifting to the window, her expression suddenly pensive. I have an idea, a risky one, but it just might work. But we're going to need Leo's help. My heart sank at the mention of Leo's name, the artist who had seemed so unnervingly intense in his interests towards me. Are you sure about that? I asked, my voice filled with doubt. He seemed unstable. I don't trust him. Clara's lips curled into a wry smile. He is a bit of a wild card. Yes, but he also hates Alexander with a passion. He might be our only chance to get this done. She stood up, her eyes alight with a steely determination. We need to act fast, Anya. They're closing in, and we are running out of time. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. The fear was still there, a constant companion, but it was now tempered with a steely resolve. I was no longer the scared girl running from her past. I was a warrior, ready to fight for my freedom. Clara was already awake, meticulously cleaning her collection of blades. The early light caught on the polished steel, making them gleam like dangerous jewels. Time to make a few calls, she said with an unnerving smile that made me realize that we had moved beyond the stage of simple survival, and the game was about to change. We were about to go on the offensive. As I looked at her, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was about to step into a whole new level of danger, but I also knew that it was a risk I had to take. The escape was no longer just about me. It was about exposing their lies, about taking them down, one carefully calculated move at a time. The real game, it seemed, was just about to begin. Chapter 7. The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, but we were out of options. Clara had managed to contact Leo through a coded message, and he had agreed to meet us at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. The place was dark and cavernous. the air thick with the smell of dust and decay, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of Alexander's office. Leo arrived, a whirlwind of nervous energy, his dark hair disheveled, his eyes wide and intense. He was carrying a large canvas, rolled up tightly, and a satchel overflowing with paint supplies. "So you're the mysterious Anya," he said, his voice a little too loud for the space. He looked at me, his gaze lingering for a beat too long, his eyes filled with a strange mix of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite decipher. "And you're Leo?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Clara told me about your skills." He grinned, a flash of manic energy. "Skills, I have many, but you are the one with true talent, Anya, the ability to see things that others can't." He turned to Clara, his smile fading slightly. "So what's this grand plan of yours?" "Let me guess, a daring art heist." Clara rolled her eyes. "It's not an art heist, Leo. It's a distraction. We need to create a diversion, something that will draw Alexander's attention away from Anya's apartment so she can retrieve her journal." She unfurled the map pointing to a specific location, a large tech expo being held downtown. "We need to create a spectacle, something that will grab headlines." Leo's eyes lit up. "A spectacle. I like the sound of that. What did you have in mind?" Clara explained her plan, a complex multi-layered operation that involved hacking into the expo's system, manipulating the screens, and projecting a series of disturbing images and slogans. It was risky, chaotic, and utterly outrageous, but it was exactly the kind of chaos we needed. As we planned, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being caught in a whirlwind, a terrifying mix of exhilaration and dread. "You understand your part?" Clara asked me, her gaze sharp. "You need to be quick, in and out. Don't linger, don't draw attention. Get the journal and get out." I nodded, my heart pounding against my ribs. "I understand." Leo was pacing back and forth, his excitement building with every passing minute. "This is going to be legendary," he muttered, his fingers twitching as if he was already applying paint to canvas. A masterpiece of chaos. The plan was set for the following night. We spent the rest of the day preparing, gathering supplies, finalizing our strategy, and making sure we had all the details covered. As the sun began to set, a thick tension filled the air, a sense that we were on the precipice of something dangerous, something that could change everything. That night, as I made my way back to my apartment, my heart was hammering against my ribs. The streets were eerily quiet, the city holding its breath, anticipating the chaos that was about to unfold. I used the knowledge Clara had given me to disable the security system, making my way through the darkened corridors, my senses on high alert. I reached my apartment, my fingers trembling as I unlocked the door. The silence was deafening, the air heavy with unspoken tension. I went straight to my bookshelf, my hands shaking as I pulled it away from the wall. The journal was still there, tucked away in the hidden compartment, a small, unassuming notebook filled with the truth they had tried so hard to bury. As I clutched it in my hand, I heard a sound behind me, a faint creaking of the floorboards. I froze, my blood running cold. I knew then that I was not alone. The game, it seemed, was about to get even more deadly. And this time, I was not sure if I could make it out alive. Chapter 8. I spun around, the journal clutched tightly in my hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. Standing in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the dim light of the hallway, was Alexander. His face was a mask of cold fury, his eyes burning with a rage I had never seen before. The gentle, charming man was gone, replaced by a figure of chilling intensity. "I knew you were planning something," he said, his voice low and menacing. "I knew you couldn't be trusted." I backed away, my mind racing, trying to figure out how he had found me. Had Clara betrayed me? Had they been playing me all along? Or was this just another twist in the complex game they had woven around me? "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. He took a step closer, his hand reaching inside his jacket. "I want the journal," he said, his gaze fixed on the small notebook in my hand. "And I want you to come back with me. You've gone far enough, Anya. It's time to end this." I knew then that I couldn't surrender, not now, not when I was so close to exposing the truth. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "You're wrong, Alexander," I said, my voice gaining strength. "It's not over, it's just beginning." I turned and ran, sprinting down the hallway, my footsteps echoing in the silence. He was fast, faster than I expected, his footsteps pounding behind me. I glanced back, seeing him gaining ground, his eyes burning with a cold fury that sent shivers down my spine. I burst out of the apartment building into the quiet night, the city lights blurring around me. I knew I had to reach Clara and Leo, that they were my only chance of escape. As I raced through the streets, I could hear the faint sound of sirens in the distance, the distant echo of chaos breaking out downtown. Leo's distraction had worked, drawing the attention of the police and security, creating the diversion we needed. I reached for my burner phone, my fingers fumbling with the keypad. I managed to dial Clara's number, the phone ringing in my hand, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Anya?" Her voice was urgent, filled with concern. "What's happening? Are you okay? He's here?" I gasped, my breath coming in ragged bursts. "Alexander, he found me. I'm heading towards the meeting point." "Stay calm," Clara said, her voice steady. "We're on our way. Just keep moving and don't let him catch you." I hung up, my eyes scanning the streets, looking for any sign of my pursuer. I took a sharp turn down a narrow alleyway, hoping to lose him in the labyrinthine streets. The darkness enveloped me, the only sound the pounding of my own heart. Then I saw him. He was blocking my path, his figure silhouetted against the dim light, his hand still hidden inside his jacket. "There's nowhere left to run, Anya," he said, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. "Give me the journal and come with me quietly." I shook my head, my grip on the journal tightening. "I won't let you control me," I said, my voice trembling with defiance. "I know the truth, and I'm not afraid to fight for it." He lunged forward, his hand coming out of his jacket, not with a gun, but with a syringe. I gasped, understanding his intention. The chilling realization that they weren't just trying to bring me back. They were trying to erase me, to erase the memories and the truth I was carrying. I dodged his attack, the syringe missing me by inches, the needle glinting menacingly in the dim light. Then, out of nowhere, a figure slammed into Alexander, sending him sprawling to the ground. It was Leo, his face contorted with fury, a paint-splattered baseball bat clutched in his hands. "Leave her alone, you bastard," he yelled, his voice filled with rage. Alexander scrambled to his feet, his eyes burning with hatred. I knew then that the situation had just escalated, that we were about to be caught in a crossfire, and that our carefully planned escape had turned into a desperate fight for survival. Chapter 9: The alley became a battlefield, the air thick with adrenaline and the sharp tang of fear. Leo, fueled by a volatile mix of rage and loyalty, swung the baseball bat with surprising force, forcing Alexander to back away. I used the brief window of opportunity to scramble behind Leo, my eyes darting around, searching for an escape route. But we were trapped, the alley a narrow dead end, the walls rising up like concrete cages. Alexander, his tailored coat now ripped and stained with dust, lunged towards Leo, his movements quick and brutal. Leo managed to parry the attack, the baseball bat clanging against Alexander's arm. They were locked in a fierce struggle, their bodies slamming against the walls, their grunts and curses echoing in the confined space. I felt a surge of panic, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to help, but my body seemed frozen, paralyzed by fear. Then I saw her, Clara, appearing as if from nowhere, her fiery red hair a beacon in the dim light, her eyes sharp and focused, a knife clutched in her hand. She moved with a speed and precision that surprised me, her movements graceful and deadly, like a predator on the hunt. She didn't waste time with words, her actions speaking louder than any explanation. She threw a small, metallic object at the ground. It shattered, releasing a cloud of thick smoke that enveloped the alley, creating a temporary screen, a brief moment of respite amidst the chaos. "Anya, go," she yelled, her voice cutting through the smoke. "I'll cover you." I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed Leo's arm, pulling him towards the back of the alley, towards a dimly lit door that I hadn't noticed before. Clara was already engaging Alexander, her movements fluid and precise, her knife a blur of motion, keeping him at bay. We reached the door, Leo fumbling with the lock, his hands shaking almost as much as mine. It opened with a loud creak, revealing a narrow passage that smelled of damp concrete and decay. We didn't hesitate, plunging into the darkness, the sounds of the struggle fading behind us. We ran through the winding passages, the air growing colder and more oppressive, the walls closing in around us. We reached another door, this one leading to a dark and silent loading bay, the sounds of the city muffled and distant. Clara joined us then, breathless, but her eyes still burning with that same steely determination. "We need to move," she said, her voice urgent. "They'll be on us any minute." She pointed to a black van parked in the shadows. "That's our ride. Let's go." We scrambled inside, Clara starting the engine, the van roaring to life, the sound echoing through the silent loading bay. She pulled out of the bay, sending the van hurtling down the darkened streets, the city lights blurring around us. The adrenaline was still coursing through my veins, my heart pounding against my ribs, but a strange sense of calm had settled over me. I had survived, for now at least. But I knew the fight was far from over. We had escaped, but I also knew that Alexander and the people who controlled him wouldn't let us go so easily. The game, it seemed, was about to take a whole new level of complexity, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that my life would never be the same. I looked at Clara, her face focused, her hands gripping the steering wheel, and I wondered what other secrets she was keeping, what other dangers lay ahead, and if I could truly trust her. The escape was a temporary reprieve. The real battle, I knew, was just beginning. Chapter 10. The van sped through the deserted streets, the city lights flashing past like streaks of paint on a dark canvas. Clara drove with a reckless abandon, her knuckles white as she gripped the steering wheel, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. Leo sat beside me, his breath coming in ragged bursts, his hands still trembling. He was a chaotic force, a whirlwind of energy, but in that moment I saw a vulnerability in his eyes, a hint of the fear he had tried so hard to conceal. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The adrenaline was slowly fading, leaving behind a chilling sense of exhaustion. "Somewhere safe," Clara replied, her voice tight. "Somewhere they can't find us." She glanced at me in the rearview mirror, her eyes still holding that sharp, intense focus. "You okay?" I nodded, clutching the journal tightly in my hand. "I think so. But that syringe, what was in it?" Clara's jaw tightened. "A memory suppressant designed to erase specific events, to rewrite your past. They were planning on using it on you, Anya, on erasing your memories of everything." The thought sent a chill down my spine. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to erase me, to take away my identity, my very essence. I looked at the journal, the small notebook that held the truth they were so desperate to bury, and I knew I had to fight not just for myself, but for everyone they were trying to manipulate, for everyone they were trying to silence. The van suddenly swerved, throwing us against our seats. Clara slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement. "We have company," she said, her voice low and urgent. I looked through the back window, heart sinking as I saw a black SUV pull up behind us, its headlights blinding us in the darkness. It was the same type of vehicle I had seen before, the one that had been following me, the one that was a symbol of my family's relentless pursuit. We were being hunted. "Get ready," Clara said, her eyes blazing. "This is not going to be easy." Threw the van into reverse, slamming her foot on the accelerator, sending the van hurtling backwards. The SUV followed, its driver clearly skilled and determined. A car chase through the narrow city streets began, a deadly game of cat and mouse, the stakes higher than ever before. Leo grabbed the baseball bat again, his eyes alight with that same manic energy. "Let's give them a show," he yelled, his voice filled with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. He leaned out the window, swinging the bat with wild abandon, his paint-splattered figure a bizarre and terrifying vision. The SUV fired a shot, the bullet shattering the back window, sending shards of glass flying through the air. I ducked down, my heart pounding against my My mind racing, trying to figure out how to survive this. Clara swerved again, sending the van careening around a sharp turn, throwing the SUV off balance. "We're almost there," she shouted, her voice strained. "Just hold on." She sped through the last few streets, the van shuddering and shaking, the sounds of pursuit close behind. Finally, we reached a large warehouse, the same one where we had met earlier that evening. She slammed on the brakes, the van coming to a halt with a screech, the SUV stopping just behind us. "Everyone out," Clara yelled, grabbing a backpack from the front seat. She opened the back doors, and we scrambled out, Leo brandishing the baseball bat, me clutching the journal like a lifeline, and Clara, her knife glinting menacingly in the dim light. We were cornered, but we were not beaten. This was not the end. It was just another battle in a war that had just begun. As we stood there, facing the oncoming headlights of the SUV, I knew that we had to fight, that we had to make a stand, that we were the only ones standing between them and the truth, and I was not about to let them win. Chapter 11. The headlights of the SUV illuminated the loading bay, casting long, menacing shadows that danced around us. 2 men emerged from the vehicle, their faces obscured by the darkness, but their movements deliberate and menacing. They were clearly professionals, trained to hunt, and I knew we were outmatched, outgunned, and cornered. But I also knew that we couldn't back down. Not now, not after everything we had been through. Clara moved first, her movements as quick and precise as a striking serpent. She threw her knife, the blade whistling through the air, narrowly missing one of the men. He stumbled back, surprised, giving us a brief window of opportunity. Leo, with a battle cry that was both terrifying and exhilarating, charged forward, swinging the baseball bat with wild abandon. The 2 men spread out, using their superior training and weaponry to their advantage, but Leo's chaotic energy kept them off balance, forcing them to react instead of taking the offensive. I stayed behind Clara, up and Leo, my mind racing, trying to find a way to help, a way to turn the odds in our favor. I clutched the journal in my hand, the small notebook that held the key to everything, the weapon that could ultimately expose them. As I watched the chaotic fight unfold, I realized that my role wasn't on the front lines. My power lay in the truth contained within those pages. The fight raged on, the sounds of grunts, curses, and the clanging of metal echoing through the loading bay. Clara was holding her own, her knife a blur of motion, her movements as graceful and deadly as a dancer. Leo, however, was starting to tire, his swings becoming slower and less precise. One of the men managed to disarm him, sending the baseball bat clattering to the ground. Seeing Leo vulnerable, I knew I had to act. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage, and ran forward, my eyes fixed on the man who had disarmed Leo. I threw myself at him, surprising him with my unexpected move, my body slamming into his. I managed to knock him off balance, sending him sprawling to the ground, giving Leo a chance to recover. He lunged forward again, grabbing the fallen baseball bat, his eyes alight with a manic fury. "Get the journal," Clara yelled, her voice strained, her gaze fixed on the other man, who was now advancing towards me, his hand reaching for his weapon. "Get out of here, Enya. Go." I didn't hesitate. I knew what I had to do. I turned and ran, heading towards the back of the warehouse, towards a dimly lit door that I had seen earlier. As I ran, I could hear the sounds of the fight behind me, the clanging of metal, the sounds of grunts and curses, the sounds of a desperate struggle for survival. But I couldn't look back. I had to trust that Clara and Leo could hold them off long enough for me to escape. I burst through the door, finding myself in another dark and silent corridor, the air thick with the smell of dust and decay. I ran through the winding passages, my mind racing, trying to figure out my next move. I knew I had to get the journal to someone who could help me expose the truth, someone who could hold my family accountable for their crimes. But who could I trust? Who could I turn to? As I ran, I realized that I was not just running away. I was running towards something, towards a destiny I could not yet fully understand. I knew that the fight was not over, that I was not safe, but I also knew that I could not be silenced, that the truth had to be revealed, no matter the cost. I reached another door, this one leading to the outside, to the dark and silent streets of the city, and I knew that my journey had just begun. The escape was only a temporary reprieve. The battle for my freedom and for the truth was about to take a whole new level of complexity. I opened the door, took a deep breath, and stepped into the darkness, ready to face whatever the future held, whatever dangers lay ahead. Chapter 12, The City, was a maze of dark alleys and deserted streets, the silence broken only by the distant wail of sirens and the pounding of my own heart. I clutched the journal tightly, its worn pages my only source of hope, my only weapon against the powerful forces that were hunting me. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I could trust, but I knew I had to keep moving. I had to keep running until I could find a way to expose the truth. I found myself in a small, neglected park, the trees casting long, eerie shadows in the pale moonlight. I sank down onto a park bench, my body aching with exhaustion, my mind racing with fear. I had to make a plan. I had to figure out how to use the journal, how to make sure that Alexander and the people who controlled him paid for their crimes. But how? Who could I turn to? Then I remembered him, Mr. Sterling, my father's most trusted advisor, the man who seemed to know everything. If I could find him, if I could show him the journal, maybe, just maybe, I could finally expose the truth. But finding him would be risky, incredibly dangerous. He would be protected, surrounded by loyal guards, always watching, always listening. But I had no other choice. I had to take the risk. I pulled out my burner phone, the one Clara had given me, and typed in the only number I knew, my father's private line. It rang several times before a voice, cold and distant, answered. "Yes, Mr. Sterling?" I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's Enya." There was a pause, a long, unnerving silence that made my heart pound in my chest. "Enya," he finally said, his voice flat, devoid of any emotion. "Where are you? I need to talk to you," I said, my voice growing stronger. "I need to show you something. It's about Alexander, it's about my family, it's about everything that you've been hiding." He hesitated for a moment, then sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of years of secrets and lies. "Very well," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Meet me at the old library, the one on Willow Street, midnight, and come alone." I hung up, my mind racing, trying to decipher his words, his tone, his intentions. Was this a trap? Was he just leading me into another carefully orchestrated ambush? Or was there a chance, a small chance, that he would finally see the truth, that he would finally stand up against my family's corruption? I didn't know, but I knew I had to take the risk. I spent the next few hours gathering my strength, trying to calm my nerves, trying to prepare myself for whatever lay ahead. I read through the journal again, my eyes scanning the pages, rereading the words, the lies, the manipulations that had defined my life. I had to do this, not just for myself, but for everyone who had been wronged, everyone who had been silenced, everyone who had been crushed beneath the weight of my family's power. As midnight approached, I made my way towards the old library, my heart pounding against my ribs. The streets were quiet, the city holding its breath, anticipating the confrontation that was about to unfold. I reached the library, its imposing structure looming in the darkness, the old stone walls whispering secrets of the past. The doors were unlocked, and I entered, the silence inside even more oppressive than the quiet at the streets. I made my way to the main hall, my footsteps echoing in the stillness, my eyes scanning the shadows. Then I saw him. Mr. Sterling was standing by the large window, his silhouette framed by the moonlight, his figure as imposing and enigmatic as ever. He was alone, his expression unreadable, his gaze fixed on me. I knew then that this was the moment of truth, the moment that would decide my fate. I took a deep breath, clutched the journal tightly in my hand, and stepped forward, ready to face whatever the future held, whatever secrets he had been hiding. The final act, I knew, was about to begin. Chapter 13. The air in the old library was thick with anticipation, the silence heavy with unspoken words and long-buried secrets. Mr. Sterling turned from the window, his gaze unwavering as he looked at me, his face a mask of carefully controlled emotions. He was impeccably dressed as always, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the worn and weary state of the library. He was a figure of power and authority, a man who had always seemed to exist in the shadows, pulling the strings, manipulating the game from behind the scenes. "Enya," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, "you've come a long way." He took a step towards me, his eyes fixed on the journal I clutched in my hand. "I must admit, I had my doubts you would make it this far. I had to," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I had to expose the truth. I had to stop you all." He smiled, a tight, unsettling smile that sent shivers down my spine. "You think you're going to stop us, Anya? You think you have any real power?" "I have the truth," I said, holding up the journal, "and the truth is stronger than any of your lies." He laughed, a short, bitter laugh that echoed through the silent hall. "The truth is a fragile thing, Anya. It can be twisted, it can be manipulated, it can be erased." He gestured towards a nearby table covered with a heavy cloth. "But I am curious, very curious. Show me what you have." I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing, trying to decipher his intentions. Was he really interested in the truth, or was this just another part of his twisted game? I took a deep breath and walked towards the table, placing the journal on the heavy cloth. He watched me intently, his gaze unwavering as he slowly approached the table. He reached out, his fingers lingering on the cover of the journal, his touch sending a strange shiver down my spine. Then he pulled the cloth away, revealing not a table, but a large screen, its surface gleaming with a soft, ethereal light. "This is it," he said, his voice calm and measured. "The culmination of everything, the final act." He pressed a button on a small remote, and the screen flickered to life, displaying a complex web of data, algorithms, and intricate diagrams. It was the AI, the same technology Alexander had been working on, but it was far more complex, far more sinister than I had ever imagined. "This," Mr. Sterling said, gesturing towards the screen, "is not just about controlling trends or predicting the future. It's about controlling minds, about shaping reality. It's about creating a world where people are nothing more than puppets, dancing to the tune of their masters. And you, Anya, you were always meant to be a part of it." My blood ran cold. "I won't be controlled," I said, my voice trembling with defiance. "I won't be a puppet." He smiled, that same chilling smile that never reached his eyes. "You already are, Anya. You just don't know it yet." He pointed to a specific diagram on the screen. A complex network of interconnected nodes, each one representing a person, each one connected to the AI. Your family, your friends, even Alexander, they're all a part of this. They're all connected to the AI. They're all under my control. Then he pointed to another node, a single isolated node that pulsed with a strange, ethereal light. "And you, Enya," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "you are the key. You are the one who can unlock its full potential, the one who can give me ultimate control." I stared at the screen, my mind racing, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had been played, manipulated, and used, not just by Alexander, not just by my family, but by this man, this puppet master who had always been lurking in the shadows. And the final act, it seemed, was about to begin. And this time, I wasn't sure if I could win. I looked at him, his face calm, his eyes cold and calculating, and I knew that this was not just a battle for my freedom. This was a battle for my soul. Chapter 14. The realization crashed over me, a tidal wave of understanding that washed away the last vestiges of hope. Mr. Sterling wasn't just a puppet master. He was the architect of my entire reality, the one who had orchestrated every single moment, every single decision that had led me to this point. My family, Alexander, everything I thought I knew. It was all a carefully constructed illusion, a meticulously planned game designed to break me, to control me, to turn me into a weapon for their sinister agenda. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice trembling, my eyes fixed on the screen, on the complex network of interconnected nodes that represented the lives they had so callously manipulated. He smiled, a cruel, chilling smile that seemed to devour the light in the room. I want your compliance, Anya. I want you to surrender your will to the AI, to allow me to use your unique abilities to achieve my ultimate goal, to create a world where I am the master and everyone else is just a puppet. He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper, his gaze intense. You have a gift and a rare ability to see the truth, to understand people. With your help, I can rewrite reality, I can mold it to my will, and together we will rule this world. I shook my head, my grip on the journal tightening, the small notebook my last remaining source of defiance. I won't, I said, my voice gaining strength. I won't let you control me. I will never be your puppet. He laughed, that same bitter, mocking laugh that sent shivers down my spine. You have no choice, Anya. You were born for this. You were designed for this. He gestured towards the screen, towards my isolated node, the one that pulsated with that strange, ethereal light. Look at it, Anya. It calls to you. It's part of you. You can't deny it. I looked at the screen, my mind racing, my heart pounding against my ribs, and as I looked, I saw it. Not just a node, not just a diagram, but a reflection of my deepest fears, my deepest desires, the core of who I was, the raw, untamed essence that they had tried so hard to suppress. And then I understood. They weren't just trying to control me. They were trying to take away my humanity, to turn me into a machine, a soulless instrument of their will. No, I said, my voice clear, my gaze unwavering. I am not a machine. I am not a puppet. I am Anya, and I will not be controlled. I took a deep breath, my body trembling with a mixture of fear and adrenaline, and I made my decision. I opened the journal, my eyes scanning the pages, searching for a specific passage, a specific detail that Clara had pointed out, a vulnerability in their system, a way to turn their own weapon against them. Then I found it. A small, almost insignificant algorithm. A subtle flaw in the code that could, if manipulated, bring their entire system crashing down. You were so close, Mr. Sterling, I said, my voice filled with a newfound strength. You were so sure of your control, you forgot one thing. I reached behind the screen, my fingers fumbling with the wires, searching for the specific connection, the one that would send the signal, the one that would destroy everything. You forgot about free will. Then I found it. I pulled the wire, a spark igniting in the silence, the screen flickering, the AI suddenly unstable. Mr. Sterling's eyes widened, his carefully controlled expression finally breaking, replaced by a mixture of shock and terror. And in that moment, I knew the game had changed. The final act had begun, and this time I was the one pulling the strings. Chapter 15, the library plunged into chaos. The lights flickered, the screen buzzed and sparked. The AI's carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes. The complex web of interconnected nodes went haywire, lines twisting and tangling, the carefully orchestrated patterns breaking down into a chaotic mess. Sterling stumbled back, his face contorted with a mixture of fear and rage. His carefully controlled demeanor finally shattering. What have you done? He yelled, his voice cracking with panic. You've ruined everything. I stood my ground, my heart pounding against my ribs, but my gaze unwavering, my spirit ignited by a newfound sense of power. I freed us, I said, my voice clear and strong. I've broken your control. It's over, Mr. Sterling. The game is over. He lunged towards me, his eyes burning with a desperate fury, his hand reaching out to grab the journal, the last remaining symbol of his shattered control. I dodged his attack, my movements quick and agile, my body reacting instinctively, fueled by adrenaline and a burning desire for freedom. He stumbled, losing his balance, his tailored suit stained with dust and grime, his carefully constructed image completely destroyed. Then the doors of the library burst open, and Clara stepped inside, her knife gleaming in the dim light, her eyes sharp and focused. Behind her, Leo stood, paint-splattered baseball bat in hand, his chaotic energy a stark contrast to Mr. Sterling's cold and calculated demeanor. They had found me. We were not alone. "We're here for you, Enya," Clara said, her voice calm and steady. "Let's finish this." She moved towards Mr. Sterling, her knife held ready, her movements graceful and deadly, like a predator on the hunt. Leo charged forward, his battle cry echoing through the hall, his baseball bat whistling through the air. Mr. Sterling, cornered and desperate, pulled out a small pistol from his jacket, his hand shaking, his control completely shattered. He fired a shot, the bullet whizzing past Clara's head, narrowly missing her. She didn't flinch, her focus unwavering, her knife moving with a speed and precision that I had never seen before. The fight was swift and brutal. Clara disarmed him, her movements fluid and precise, her knife making contact, a small cut appearing on his arm. Leo charged in again, sending Mr. Sterling sprawling to the ground, the baseball bat thudding against his chest. He lay there defeated, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief, his carefully crafted world completely destroyed. "It's over, Sterling," Clara said, her voice cold and hard. "Your game is over." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and relief. "Are you okay, Enya?" I nodded, my body trembling, my mind still racing, but my spirit soaring. I was free. We had done it. We had fought back, we had exposed the truth, and we had broken the chains of control that had bound us for so long. I looked at Mr. Sterling, defeated, his carefully constructed world reduced to ruins, and I knew that our journey was far from over. There were still so many questions to be answered, so many secrets to be uncovered, so many lives to be rebuilt, but in that moment, in that chaotic, broken hall, I knew that a new chapter had begun. The fight was won, but the real work, the rebuilding, the healing, was just beginning. Chapter 16, The Aftermath, was a chaotic mix of relief and exhaustion. We left Mr. Sterling tied up in the library, the AI screen still flickering erratically, a broken monument to his shattered ambitions. The police arrived soon after, their sirens blaring through the silent streets, their arrival a welcome, if slightly surreal, intrusion into our chaotic world. Clara and Leo spoke to the officers, explaining the situation with a calm authority that surprised me, and I realized that they were used to this, to the world of shadows and secrets that I had only just begun to navigate. As they talked to the police, I found myself wandering through the library, my fingers tracing the spines of the old books, my mind racing, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The weight of the past few months crashed down on me, a mixture of fear, betrayal, and a strange sense of liberation. I was free, but the freedom felt terrifying, overwhelming, like standing on the edge of a vast, unknown abyss. Then I saw him. Alexander was standing by the large window, his silhouette framed by the pale moonlight, his gaze fixed on me. He looked different, broken, the charming facade that I had known for so long completely gone, replaced by a mixture of confusion and despair. He was no longer the confident tech entrepreneur, the charming companion. He was just a man, lost and adrift, a puppet whose strings had finally been cut. "Anya," he said, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and regret. I didn't know. I didn't know what they were planning, what Sterling was doing. I just wanted to help. I stared at him, my heart aching with a mixture of anger and pity. I wanted to hate him, to blame him for everything. But I also knew that he was a victim, just like me, another pawn in their twisted game. "Did you ever care about me, Alexander?" I asked, my voice low. Was any of it real? He hesitated for a moment, his eyes shifting away, unable to meet my gaze. I thought it was. I wanted it to be. He took a step closer, his voice filled with a desperate plea. "I never wanted to hurt you, Enya. I never wanted this." I shook my head, my heart still aching, my mind still trying to process the betrayal, the manipulation, the lies. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Alexander," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again." He nodded, his eyes filled with tears, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I understand. I don't deserve your trust. Not anymore." He looked away, his gaze shifting to the broken screen, the flickering images of the AI, his life's work, his purpose reduced to ruins. "What will happen to us now, Anya?" he asked, his voice filled with a strange mix of fear and hope. I looked at him, at this man I had once trusted, this man who had become both my tormentor and my ally, and I knew that our journey was far from over. The game was over, yes, but the real work, the rebuilding, the healing, was just beginning. There were still so many questions to be answered, so many secrets to be uncovered, so many lives to be rebuilt, and I knew, with a chilling certainty, that the path ahead was going to be long and difficult, but we wouldn't have to walk it alone. I would have Clara and the Leo, and I would have myself finally free, finally empowered, finally able to forge my own destiny. The escape was over, but the real life, the one I had always dreamed of, was about to begin. Chapter 17. The first rays of dawn painted the sky in hues of soft pink and lavender as we stepped out of the library, the city slowly coming to life around us. The police had taken Mr. Sterling into custody, his reign of terror finally over, his carefully constructed world reduced to rubble. The air was still, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous hours, a sense of calm settling over me, a fragile peace that I knew wouldn't last forever. We walked in silence, Clara, Leo, Alexander, and I, our footsteps echoing in the quiet streets. We had been through so much together, a whirlwind of hunger, betrayal, and a desperate fight for survival. We were broken, battered, but we were also free, finally liberated from the shadows that had held us captive for so long. I looked at them, these people who had become my reluctant allies, my chosen family, and I knew that our journey was far from over. We reached a small cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, a welcome invitation into the warmth and light. We sat down at a table near the window, the early morning sun streaming through the glass, casting long, dancing shadows on the floor. The silence was comfortable, a shared understanding that spoke volumes more than any words could. So Leo said, breaking the silence, his voice surprisingly calm, his eyes shifting between us, "What now?" He had cleaned off the paint from his face. His hair was slightly neater, but his eyes still held that familiar mix of intensity and vulnerability. Clara took a sip of her coffee, her gaze steady, her expression thoughtful. "We start again," she said, her voice firm. "We rebuild, we expose the truth, and we make sure this never happens again." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and determination. "We have the journal, Enya. We have the proof. We can take them down." I nodded, my heart filled with a mixture of trepidation and resolve. I had the journal, the small notebook that held the key to everything, the evidence that could finally hold my family and everyone who had been part of this elaborate scheme accountable for their actions. But I also knew that it wouldn't be easy. The forces they wielded were powerful, their influence far-reaching, and exposing them would be a long and dangerous battle. Then Alexander spoke, his voice barely a whisper, his gaze fixed on his hands. "I can help," he said, his voice filled with a quiet desperation. "I know the system. I know the people. I can use my connections to expose them. I want to atone for everything. I want to make things right." I looked at him, at this man who had once been my enemy, my manipulator, but who was now just another victim, another pawn in their twisted game. I still didn't trust him completely. I still carried the pain of his betrayal, but I also knew that he was sincere, that he genuinely wanted to help, to rebuild, to find some kind of redemption. "Don't know, Alexander," I said, my voice still filled with a mixture of doubt and longing. "Can we ever really move on from this?" He looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair. "I don't know, Nia, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." We sat there in silence, the early morning sun streaming through the window, the aroma of coffee filling the air, a sense of fragile peace settling between us. We were broken, battered, but we were also united, bound together by a shared experience, by a common desire to heal, to rebuild, to find some kind of justice in the ashes of their deceit. The escape was over, but our journey, our battle for truth, for freedom, for a better future, had just begun. and this time I knew we would face it together. Chapter 18, the days that followed, were a whirlwind of activity, a carefully orchestrated campaign to expose the truth and hold my family and every land involved in their scheme accountable. We worked as a team, each of us bringing our unique skills and perspectives to the table. Clara, with her sharp intellect and her contacts within the city's hidden circles, coordinated our strategy, ensuring that we stayed one step ahead of my family's remaining allies. Leo, with his chaotic energy and his artistic flair, created a series of powerful images and slogans that we used to amplify our message, spreading our story beyond the city, gaining national attention. Alexander, using his knowledge of the tech world and his connections within the media, worked tirelessly to expose the inner workings of the AI and the full extent of my family's manipulations. I, myself, spent countless hours working with them, poring over documents, deciphering algorithms, and piecing together the full story of the conspiracy that had defined my life. But the most important thing I did was share my story, my pain, my anger, and my unwavering determination to fight for justice. I spoke to reporters, I gave interviews, I wrote articles, and I made sure that my voice was heard, that my message reached the hearts and minds of everyone who had ever felt betrayed, manipulated, or controlled. The backlash was immediate and intense. My family tried to discredit me, to silence me, but I refused to back down. I had the journal, I had the proof, and I had the unwavering support of Clara, Leo, and even Alexander, who worked tirelessly to make amends. The media was a battlefield, the fight for public opinion, a brutal and exhausting campaign. But we persevered, our determination fueled by a shared desire for truth and justice. Then it happened. The evidence we had carefully compiled finally reached the right people, the people with the power to take down my family, the people who had been waiting for someone to expose the corruption that had been festering in the highest echelons of power. My father and all the key players in his network were arrested, their empire finally collapsing under the weight of their own lies. The news spread like wildfire, a wave of shock and disbelief rippling through the nation. The city and the world watched as the carefully constructed facade of my family's power finally shattered, revealing the dark and twisted heart of their corruption. I watched it all unfold, my heart filled with a mixture of relief and a strange sense of emptiness. We had won, but the victory felt bittersweet. My family, the people who were supposed to love and protect me, had been revealed as monsters, and the pain of that betrayal still echoed within my soul. One evening, as I sat with Clara and Leo in our newly acquired safe house, a small, unassuming apartment overlooking the city, a strange sense of quiet settled over us. The fight was over for now at least, but the rebuilding, the healing, was just beginning. "It's finally over," Leo said, his voice low, his eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and pride. He turned to me, a rare moment of genuine tenderness in his gaze. "You did it, Enya. You finally broke free." Clara nodded, her expression thoughtful, her gaze fixed on the city lights. "We all did," she said, her voice filled with a quiet sense of satisfaction. "We finally won." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and respect. "You are a warrior, Enya. You are truly free." I looked at them, at my chosen family, at the people who had stood by me, who had fought with me, who had helped me reclaim my own life, and a small smile finally appeared on my face, a genuine smile that I had not felt in a long time. I was free. We were all free. And as I looked out over the city, the lights twinkling like a million stars in the darkness, I knew that our journey was far from over, but for the first time, in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope, a flicker of light that promised a new beginning. Chapter 19 years passed. The city changed, the world changed, and I changed along with it. The scars of the past remained, a constant reminder of the pain and betrayal I had endured, but they no longer defined me. They had become a part of who I was, a source of strength, a testament to my resilience, a constant push to strive for a better future. I still worked with Claire and Leo, our partnership stronger than ever, our bond forged in the fires of adversity. We had established a foundation dedicated to helping others who had been wronged, manipulated, or controlled, giving them a voice, a platform, a chance to reclaim their own lives. We had become a beacon of hope for those who had been lost in the shadows, a testament to the power of truth, the importance of free will, and the unbreakable human spirit. Leo's art had gained international recognition, his paintings now hanging in the world's most prestigious galleries, his chaotic energy transformed into a source of powerful beauty, a testament to the human capacity for resilience and transformation. He still had his moments of intensity, his bursts of manic energy, but he was more grounded, more centered, his purpose clear, his passion unwavering. Clara, with her sharp intellect and her fierce determination, had become a leading figure in the fight for social justice, her voice a powerful force for change, her influence reaching the highest levels of government. She was still as guarded as ever, as fiercely independent, but beneath her tough exterior, I could see a glimmer of tenderness, a quiet vulnerability that she only revealed to those she truly trusted. Alexander had found his own path, a long and arduous road to redemption. He had dedicated his life to ensuring that the AI he had helped to create would never be used for manipulation again, working tirelessly to develop ethical AI guidelines and to expose the potential dangers of unchecked technological power. He still carried the weight of his past mistakes, but he was more at peace, his purpose clear, his commitment absolute. As for me, I had finally found my voice, my place in the world. I had become a writer, an advocate, a fighter for justice, using my own story, my own pain, to inspire others, to give them hope, to empower them to fight for their own freedom. I had written a book, a detailed account of everything that had happened, exposing the full extent of my family's corruption, making sure that their crimes were never forgotten, that the truth would finally prevail. One afternoon, I found myself walking by the river, the city lights shimmering on the water, just as they had on that night when I had first met Alexander. I paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs, my heart filled with a mixture of gratitude and a strange sense of contentment. I had come a long way from that dark alley, from that cold cardboard bed, from that place of fear and despair. Then I saw him. He was standing by the lamppost, his silhouette framed by the pale moonlight, his gaze fixed on me. It was Alexander. He had grown older, his face lined with the wisdom of years, his eyes still holding that same mixture of vulnerability and hope. He looked at me, a small smile appearing on his face, a silent understanding passing between us, a shared acknowledgement of all that we had been through, all that we had become. We walked together along the river, the city lights shimmering on the water, our footsteps echoing in the quiet night, a sense of peace settling over us. Our journey was far from over. The world still had its share of darkness, and there were still so many battles to be fought. But we were no longer afraid. We were no longer alone. We were strong, we were resilient, and we were ready to face whatever the future held, together and finally free. Chapter 20, the silence between us was comfortable, a shared understanding that transcended words, a connection forged in the crucible of our shared past. We walked slowly, the city lights shimmering on the dark water, the cool night air a gentle balm against the lingering heat of the day. I looked at Alexander, his face lined with the wisdom of years, his eyes holding a quiet sadness, but also a profound sense of peace. He was no longer the charming tech entrepreneur, the puppet of my family's ambitions. He was a man who had faced his own demons, who had made his own choices, and who had finally found his own path to redemption. "It's strange," I said, breaking the silence, my voice low, almost a whisper. "Sometimes it feels like that life was a different lifetime, a dream I once had, like that girl in the alley. That scared, desperate girl wasn't even me." He nodded, his gaze fixed on the water, his voice soft. "I know what you mean. Sometimes I look back at the man I was, the man I became, and it feels like looking at a stranger. But it was all part of the journey, wasn't it? The pain, the betrayal, the fear, it all led us here to this moment." He turned to me, a small, tender smile appearing on his face. It made us who we are. We walked in silence again for a while, the unspoken understanding hanging heavy between us. Then Alexander stopped, his hand gently touching my arm. "Anya," he said, his voice hesitant, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "There's something I wanted to ask you, something I should have asked you a long time ago." My heart skipped a beat, my breath catching in my throat. I knew what he was about to say. I had known it for years, and yet a small part of me still felt that familiar flutter of anxiety, that lingering fear that I would never be truly free, that the past would always haunt me, that the scars would never fully heal. He took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering, his voice filled with a quiet sincerity. "I know I hurt you, Enya. I know I betrayed your trust, and I know that there are things that can never be undone, wounds that can never be fully healed, but I also know that I care for you more than I ever thought possible. You are a warrior, a survivor, the strongest person I know, and I want to know if maybe, just maybe, we could try again. If we could try to build something real, something true, something lasting." I looked at him, my heart aching with a mixture of longing and fear, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. The past was still there, a shadow that lingered in the corners of my mind, but I had also learned to let go, to forgive, to find strength in the face of adversity, and I knew that Alexander had changed, that he had grown, that he had finally found his own path to redemption. I took his hand in mine, my fingers intertwining with his, a small spark of warmth passing between us. "I don't know, Alexander," I said, my voice barely a whisper, my heart trembling with hope, "but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to take that chance." He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, his hands squeezing mine gently. "That's all I ever wanted, Enya, a chance." We stood there by the river, the city lights shimmering on the dark water, the cool night air a silent witness to our unspoken promise. The past was still a part of us, but it no longer controlled us. We were free, finally free to choose our own path, to forge our own destiny, and to build a future, together, whatever the future might hold. And as I looked at Alexander, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and love, I knew that our journey, finally, had truly begun. The end was not an end. It was just the beginning of our new story. Chapter 21, the weight of the past years seemed to lift, a burden finally released, as we stood there by the river, our hands intertwined, our hearts tentatively reaching out to each other. The cool night air kissed my skin, the city lights reflecting in the dark water, creating a magical tableau that felt both familiar and brand new. I looked at Alexander, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity, a love that had been forged in the fires of adversity, and I knew that I was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold, with him by my side. We began to rebuild slowly, cautiously, our relationship a delicate tapestry woven with threads of trust, forgiveness, and a shared desire to create something beautiful, something real. We spent hours talking, sharing our deepest fears, our unspoken desires, our hopes for the future. We revisited the past, not to dwell on the pain, but to understand the journey that had brought us here, the lessons we had learned, the growth we had experienced. We worked together at the foundation, our partnership a well-oiled machine, our shared passion for justice and freedom, driving us to greater heights. We supported each other's individual pursuits, celebrating each other's triumphs, offering comfort in moments of doubt and despair. We built a life together, a home filled with laughter, love, and a quiet sense of contentment. Clara and Leo were ever present in our lives, our chosen family, our unwavering support system. Leo's art continued to gain international acclaim, his paintings now exhibited in museums around the world, his chaotic energy channeled into powerful expressions of the human experience. He remained a whirlwind of passion, but he was also more grounded, more centered, his purpose clear, his heart finally at peace. Clara continued to fight for justice, her voice a powerful force for change, her influence extending to the highest echelons of power. She remained fiercely independent, as guarded as ever, but she had also softened, allowing herself to be vulnerable, to accept the love and support of those who had earned her trust. She had become a true sister, a confidant, a lifeline in moments of uncertainty. We traveled together, exploring the world, experiencing different cultures, broadening our horizons, and strengthening our bond. We visited the places that held painful memories, facing the demons of the past head-on, reclaiming our stories, transforming our pain into a source of strength, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. One evening, we found ourselves back in the city, walking by the river, the city lights twinkling on the water, just as they had on that night when we had first met. The air was warm, the night was filled with a sense of peace, a quiet serenity that spoke volumes about the journey we had traveled. I looked at Alexander, his hand warm in mine, his eyes filled with a love that had stood the test of time, the trial of fire, and I knew that I had finally found my home, my safe haven, my heart's true north. He stopped walking, turning to face me, his gaze tender, his voice filled with a quiet love. "Anya," he said, his hand cupping my face gallantly, his eyes searching mine. "I love you, more than words can say. You are my warrior, my survivor, my inspiration. You are my heart." Tears welled up in my eyes, a mixture of joy, relief, and a profound sense of gratitude. I knew that I loved him, that our love had been forged in the fires of adversity, that it was real, that it was true, that it was something that would last a lifetime. "I love you too, Alexander," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. More than words can say. We kissed, our lips meeting, in a tender embrace, the city lights shimmering around us, the world fading away, leaving only us, our hearts entwined, our souls finally at peace. And as we stood there by the river, our future stretching out before us like a vast and endless horizon, I knew that our journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I had finally found what I had been searching for, a place where I truly belonged, a love that would last a lifetime, a freedom that could never be taken away. Chapter 22 years flowed like a river, carving new paths, reshaping old landscapes, and leaving behind the imprints of time and experience. The foundation thrived, a testament to the power of resilience and the unwavering human spirit. We had become a global force for change, our message of truth, justice, and freedom echoing across the world, touching the lives of countless individuals who had once felt lost in the shadows. I had finally found peace, my heart healed, my soul restored. The scars of the past remained, a constant reminder of the journey I had traveled, but they no longer held me captive. They were a testament to my strength, my courage, my unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Alexander and I had built a life together, a home filled with laughter, love, and a quiet sense of contentment. Our relationship was a beacon of hope, a reminder that love could overcome even the darkest of betrayals, that trust could be rebuilt, that healing was always possible. We were each other's confidants, our partners in life, our unwavering support system, a constant source of strength and inspiration. Clara and Leo remained our chosen family, our unwavering allies, our closest confidants. Clara continued to fight for justice, her voice a powerful force for change, her influence now extending to the international stage, her advocacy for human rights and social equality making a lasting impact. She had softened over the years, her once guarded exterior revealing a warmth and tenderness that she now shared openly with those she loved. Leo's art had reached new heights, his paintings now displayed in the world's most prestigious museums, his work not only beautiful but also deeply meaningful, a reflection of the human experience, a testament to the power of hope and the transformative power of art. He had found his own inner peace, his chaotic energy channeled into a source of profound creativity, his life finally a masterpiece of his own making. One evening, we gathered at our home, our chosen family united by shared memories, shared triumphs, and a shared love for each other. We sat around the fireplace, the flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, the air filled with laughter, love, and a quiet sense of contentment. We reminisced about the past, about the dark days, the desperate fights, the moments of fear and uncertainty. We celebrated our triumphs, the battles we had won, the lives we had touched, the world we had helped to change. As the evening drew to a close, I looked at Alexander, his eyes filled with a mixture of love and tenderness, his hand warm in mine, and I knew that I had finally found what I had been searching for, a place where I truly belonged, a love that would last a lifetime, a freedom that could never be taken away. He took my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine, a silent promise passing between us, a shared understanding of all that we had been through, all that we had become. "It's funny, isn't it?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my gaze fixed on the dancing flames, that from the darkest of places, the most terrible betrayals, the most profound pain, we were able to find such beauty, such love, such a sense of purpose. Alexander nodded, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding, his gaze fixed on mine. "We were always meant to find each other, Enya," he said, his voice filled with a quiet certainty. "It was always our destiny, our journey, to find our way out of the shadows, to build a life filled with love, light, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place." We sat there in silence for a while, the flames dancing in the hearth, the air filled with a quiet peace, a sense of fulfillment that transcended words. We were free, we were strong, and we were ready to face whatever the future held, together, and finally, truly at home. The game was finally over, and our lives, our love, our legacy was just about to begin. Chapter 23. The years continued to weave their intricate tapestry, bringing with them new challenges, new triumphs, and new opportunities for growth and connection. Our lives were filled with purpose, our days spent fighting for justice, advocating for the voiceless, and striving to create a world where no one would ever have to endure the pain and manipulation we had suffered. Alexander and I had become partners in every sense of the word, our love a constant source of strength and inspiration, our partnership a well-oiled machine that allowed us to tackle the world's most pressing issues with unwavering determination. We had learned to navigate the complexities of our past, to understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and to support each other through every obstacle, every victory, every moment of doubt and despair. One evening, as we were working late into the night at the foundation, the city lights twinkling outside our office windows, Alexander looked up from his computer, his eyes filled with a quiet intensity. "Enya," he said, his voice soft, his gaze searching mine, "there's something I need to ask you." My heart skipped a beat, a familiar flutter of excitement mixed with a touch of nervousness. I knew intuitively what he was about to ask, a question that had been silently hanging in the air between us for years, a culmination of all the trials and triumphs, all the love and loss we had experienced together. He stood up from his chair, his hand reaching for mine, a tender smile appearing on his face. He led me to the window, our hands still intertwined, the city lights a glittering backdrop to our shared moment. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a profound love, a quiet certainty that took my breath away. "Anya," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "you are my everything. You are my strength, my inspiration, my home, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes, a mixture of joy, relief, and a profound sense of gratitude. I had found my love, my soulmate, my partner in life, the one person who understood me completely, the one person who had seen me at my lowest, who had fought beside me, who had loved me unconditionally. "Yes," I whispered, my voice barely above a breath, my heart overflowing with a love that had no bounds. "Yes, Alexander, I will marry you." He smiled a genuine smile that reached his eyes, his arms wrapping around me, holding me close, his lips meeting mine in a tender kiss, a promise of forever, a testament to the power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the beautiful future that stretched before us. We celebrated our engagement with Clara and Leo, our chosen family, our unwavering support system, their joy echoing our own, their love a constant reminder of the bond that had been forged in the fires of adversity. We knew that our journey was far from over, that there would be new challenges, new battles to face, but we also knew that we would face them together. Our love a beacon of hope, our strength a source of inspiration for the world. And as I looked at Alexander, his eyes filled with love, his hand in mine, the city lights twinkling around us, I knew that I had finally found my happily ever after, a place where I truly belonged, a love that would last a lifetime, a freedom that could never be taken away, and a life that was truly, beautifully, and completely mine.